It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, Lexmark had a town hall meeting for their dealers yesterday. The title of the town hall meeting, A Lot Happens in a Year. What a disgusting slap in the face title for a town hall meeting held by Lexmark. Lexmark, here's what the title should have been. Over the last year, we have distorted, we have distracted, and we have gaslighted the issues regarding Lexmark. And today, we're going to address the truth. Boy, if you'd have done that, everybody would have loved that webinar. Regardless of how painful the truth is always welcome. Lexmark, as far as I'm concerned, you could have hid under your desk as opposed to having this town hall meeting. Let me say up front, I did not get an invitation to the town hall meeting. You would think, being Lexmark's largest critic, they would have invited me. We want to set the record straight. We want to answer those tough questions, as long as they're not from Ray. Lexmark, I've told you before, your leaders need to get off their ass and get on stage at an industry event and address your damn realities to the industry's actors and allow the industry's actors to ask you any questions they want, unscripted. After all, a lot happens in a year. Maybe it's time we actually address what's happened. Ladies and gentlemen, in the presentation, they always like to show this slide. And they like to talk about how they're governed by an independent U.S. board. They like to talk about how 9-Star is just one of their investors. They like to talk about their security. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, everything they're telling you, as far as I'm concerned, is pure bullshit. And they won't address any of my concerns head on. You got to ask yourself, why is that? Now, I know that the leadership over at Lexmark, they're obviously a lot smarter than the end of the day with Ray. After all, they work at Lexmark. They know everything that's going on at Lexmark. Ray doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Any leader that would allow a critic called The End of the Day with Ray to control their narrative for over a year and not address any of it, when they know that that critic, and I'm not saying this to brag, it's just a reality, has the largest platform in the industry. They don't want to address it? Ladies and gentlemen, let me just ask you this. Why would dealers care what Lexmark says after a year of nonsensical gaslighting? Why would you care what they say? I think Lexmark should have stayed hiding underneath their desks as opposed to putting on this town hall. I got to ask Lexmark a question. Who's lying? You or 9-Star? One of you is lying. So the leadership at Lexmark is outright lying to the entire industry, or the leadership at 9-Star is outright lying to the whole industry. If you go to 9-Star's website, I don't know how many times I had to show all this to you. It says right there, in the laser printer segment, 9-Star owns Lexmark and Phantom. In the laser printer segment, 9-Star owns Lexmark and Phantom. Lexmark. If 9-Star is just one of your investors, why in God's name are they saying on their website that they own you? You need to sue the shit out of 9-Star. Why are you not doing this? Lexmark, a year ago when you had your meeting there in Lexington, one of the executives stood on stage, kind of joking and laughing about how, hey, we're in the courthouse where we sued the very first remanufacturer. Remember that? I have a little video of that if I need to remind everybody. So it's not like Lexmark's afraid to sue people. I'm just thinking to myself, you should file a lawsuit immediately against 9-Star because they got on their website that they own you. And you're telling everybody on town hall meeting they're just one of your investors. You never use the word own, but 9-Star does. That's extremely misleading. Now, I know the Communist Chinese Party, you really can't trust the PRCs, right, over there? Come on. We all know that PRC companies are controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, so maybe they are lying. Well, if they're lying, Lexmark, my God, file a lawsuit against them. Because one of you is lying, is the point. Where the hell has the board of directors been? Where have they been? There's all their names. And this isn't about politics, but if you go and you research these board members, there's like the who's who of the past Democratic Party, right? And I don't care. It shouldn't matter if they're a Democratic Party, Republican Party. The whole damn free world should oppose slave labor. Where the hell has this board of directors been with this? I think that the leadership at Lexmark could easily share all the board meetings that Lexmark's had since this thing broke out. I'm sure you had to have some like emergency meetings. I mean, you don't have to tell us any secrets you shared at the meetings, but you could at least say, hey, we had a meeting on this date, at this time, at this location. Here's who all attended. Maybe you could share some of the information. Independently governed board? Really? I think this board is pure nonsense. I've said it before, and I'm saying it again. One of these board members is over 85 years old. Really? Ladies and gentlemen, Lexmark printers, redefined as made in Mexico. I did a whole article on this. This is the most absurd thing. And I know that, you know, they talked about this at the town hall. Oh, our products are made in Mexico. I mean, the dealer's like, oh, thank God they're made in Mexico. Did they get into the details of this? Did they tell you on that call that, hey, we got to explain something to you? So we've got some machines that have been rebranded, made in Mexico, because only 37% of the labor hours are done in China. 61% of the labor hours are done in Mexico. Therefore, we can label them Mexican made or made in Mexico. Did they share that with you? Because if they gave you that detail, then here's what I would think, just as a logical person. Some in our industry have zero interest in stopping slave labor as long as it's less than 37% of the labor hours. What the WTF? But would that be true? I mean, I think Lexmark's leader should have said that. They could have, this is the truth. Well, dealers, we want to let you know, we got these machines relabeled, made in Mexico, because only 37% of the labor hours are performed in China. And then the dealers could say, oh, so 37% of the labor hours are done in China is like 1% of those hours slaves being used, 2%, 3%. It shouldn't matter if 0.5% is using slave labor. Because as far as I'm concerned, that would affect the other 95%. This is a reality. I know that dealers want to think everything's down there in Mexico is great. They're making them in Mexico. Oh, thank God they're making these things in Mexico. Now we can flood the marketplace with Lexmark machines. Let me ask it again, because when you ask it out loud, it is so disgusting of a question. You're thinking, what the hell? Some in our industry have zero interest in stopping slave labor as long as it's less than 37% of the labor hours. WTF. I believe that town hall meeting was nothing more than a sales pitch to get dealers to buy A3 equipment. And I just can't even comprehend this. What dealer in their right mind is going to infect their myth with Lexmark A3 machines? With all the issues around the A4 devices, all the issues around the UFLPA, all the issues around 9-Star, why would you even consider this as an option? And right now, I want to thank all those dealers that have told Lexmark, you know what, we can't deal with a PRC subsidiary when the PRC has been banned over forced enslaved labor. We can't deal with it, so we're not going to sell your product. And a lot of dealers have told Lexmark that. And there's other options for these dealers, and I know that's hard for Lexmark to hear, and I know that we got friends at Lexmark. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to put reality and what the hell's going on in the geopolitical landscape in perspective. What dealer in their right mind is going to sign up to sell Lexmark A3 with all the issues around Lexmark over the last year? Because Lexmark's leaders are right. A lot's happened. A lot's happened over a year. And surely, it wasn't, we're making A3 so we can get those out in the marketplace. I got to ask this, and this is a little sarcasm, but maybe it's true. Was Chi and Kim John on the conference call? Did they remote in? Did they get the secret code? I want to end with a few thoughts. It was over a year ago the BTA had a panel on slave labor. I went to that panel discussion, the BTA, and a lot of their leaders were horrified that I was going to be there. They thought I was going to disrupt the whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I listened to the panel discussion. The panel was put together with people that probably shouldn't even have been on the panel. It was irrelevant to the issue. And I wasn't real excited about how it was moderated. But I sat through it, and at the end of it, I complimented the BTA for putting the panel discussion together. And I said, I hope this isn't the end. Well, I think it was, because I haven't had any updates. Have you? I wrote an open letter to the CEO of Lexmark, put it right on LinkedIn. I shared my thoughts. I wrote it a letter out. Totally ignored by anybody at Lexmark. Who the hell's Ray think he is to write me an open letter? I did it. I did a video on it. I suggested that the moderator of the BTA panel discussion start out by sharing the letter he sent Lexmark and the letter that Lexmark sent him. The letter inviting Lexmark executives to participate in the panel, and the letter where Lexmark says, we're not coming. They did take that advice from me. Of course, they took the advice to put the panel discussion together from me too. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we need to have another panel discussion. We need to have an update. If Lexmark's so excited about doing town hall meetings, get your ass out from behind glass and get out on a stage and address your reality. This time, allow someone critical of you to ask the questions. Ladies and gentlemen in our industry, I want to wrap it up with this. Stop allowing people who are hoping nothing changes until they retire to control conversations. When I look at the Lexmark leadership, I think to myself, there's just a bunch of people wanting to retire. They loved Lexmark. They've been there forever. They know they're in a terrible situation. They're not going to do anything about it because they're going to retire. And ladies and gentlemen, we can't allow people that are just hanging around till they retire to try to navigate the industry. There's a lot in today's episode, but at the end of the day, I think the most important issue that we all need to decide is, are we just going to continue to allow Lexmark to pacify us, to make us feel good, so we ourselves don't have to really think about this critically? I think everybody in the industry needs to think about Lexmark as critical as me. I'm disgusted by our industry's media and analysts. I'm disgusted by people that call themselves consultant and industry leaders that have said nothing about any of this. It's really disgusting. And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.